Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Lieboff, and joining me for this, our preview episode for Thursday, October the 17th, 11 games on the docket, is Nick Martin. And Nick, we're going to get right into it with our favorite underdog. And I think it's really interesting, this slate. I don't know if I've ever seen an NHL betting board with this many games. Like I said, 11 on the schedule on Thursday night. Lined this tight. There's so many games that are lined in at least in hockey betting terms as relative coin flips, including both of the underdogs we liked are pretty tight. I should say yours can go first. It's a little bit tighter than the one I like.
Yeah, this is a great slate. I'm excited to break this one down. Hopefully, it works out good for us. I had a tough time picking a favorite underdog because there's a couple in this range that I thought were tempting, but it looks like the Knights are going to be the ones that the price stays, hopefully. So I like the Knights in Tampa Bay. Full credit to the Lightning for their start. I think they've looked really good. They might end up being even a little better than I thought, but I still just have to give credit to the Knights roster here. I think that they're going to prove to be the better team than Tampa Bay this season. I think that their blue line is significantly deeper and should be a pretty clear advantage over what the Lightning have back there. So I like a lot of what's going on with the Knights here. They had a bit of a bad night, obviously, in Washington, but at anything better than even money here, I feel pretty confident to take them on off that loss, taking on a team that I actually just think they're going to be better than this season. So I think the Knights are a good underdog bet on Thursday.
And I'll stick with a team we've highlighted a few times in this segment. Don't think we've hit it yet, and that's the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are taking on the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres will be on a back-to-back. This one is in Columbus. I do think at this point, like I feel like Devin Levi might be the better goalie than Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, so I'm not like it's not a backup goaltender situation or anything like that. But I do like the spot for Columbus, and I do think that they just deserve. And this you can make the same argument about the Sabres, but the Blue Jackets are the underdog here. They're the home underdog here. They deserve a little bit better than the results have shown. They're 1-2. They aren't getting pummeled in terms of like 5-on-5 play. They've played to an even goal differential at 5-on-5. The expected goals say that is maybe underselling them even a little bit, as they're around 52% at 5-on-5 right now. The schedule hasn't been like a walk in the park. They played the Panthers and the Avalanche, so these are good teams, and I know Buffalo has also been better than their results, but I think given the schedule spot, I like Columbus here as a home dog at plus 110 or better.
Yeah, I would lean with the Blue Jackets here as well with you. Um, but it comes down to I'm not that excited to fade Buffalo right now. I'll at least see how that one goes. Columbus has been pretty good. I'd bet them over again based off how that game went at plus 150. I mean, it sucks to comment on gambling when that wasn't anything to do with what mattered from that game, but I thought that the Blue Jackets played really well again. I think they've shown some heart this season, and they have some young talents looking really good. The Chinikov Monahan line has been excellent. That line's they've produced a lot. They're generating a ton of chances analytically speaking. So I think another potential look that would be interesting in this game versus a Sabres team that should be pretty middling defensively is just going back to the well on Marchenko, Monahan, Chinikov to be productive in this matchup, because I think that they'll get a pretty good spot to continue what's been an excellent start to the season here.
Okay, so that's the Blue Jackets and Golden Knights as our favorite underdogs. Like I said, a lot of games lined really tight, but I believe, quick glance, no, this is a second closest in terms of the odds right now. That's Vancouver and Florida in Florida. The Roberto Luongo Bowl, Vancouver minus 104, the Panthers minus 115. Total here's 5.5. Pretty simple here. I do think this is probably the time to buy low on Vancouver, given Florida's injuries down the middle. Full credit to them for scrapping a couple results, but against the Bruins and Blue Jackets. But now third game in 4 nights for them, and the Canucks I think are like we haven't been shy about how we don't think that they're as good as the betting market perceive them coming in, but I do think they deserve a little bit more credit than being minus 104 considering the schedule spot for Florida and the injuries.
Yeah, I'm not really going to talk up the Canucks at all, and I like them in this game. I just think it's such a good spot for them to get right versus a Florida team, like you said, that's 3-4, doesn't have two of their best players. They found a way to. I've faded them the last two games. They found a way to prove me wrong in both, but I also think, given the way those games went, I would actually do it again. So let's just go right back on them. I think this is one of those things. Are the Canucks really going to be this bad? Even I didn't really think they'd be this bad, and it's been pretty ugly. They've only got a 47% expected goals share. I didn't get to review last night's game too much, but it doesn't sound like they're really overly competitive. So I don't really want to talk up the Canucks too much, but it also feels like you take Kachuk and Barkov out of the mix and you look at this spot, it feels like the right time to buy on them for the first time this season.
1993 Stanley Cup final rematch, Kings and Habs. Los Angeles at -134 in Montreal. The Habs +112. The total here is 5.5, which I find pretty funny, considering that both of these teams have played some helter-skelter games. The Kings, that 15-goal game with Ottawa. The Habs have had some back-and-forth ones as well. And I think that you would say that the Canadiens probably, just on paper, profile as an over team. This is also a matchup between two guys that we stumped for in the Vezina market, Sam Montembeault and Darcy Kemper. If they get those starts, I don't know. But I do think a lot of people are going to see a low total here and bet the over. I'm not going to bet this one. I think there's just way too many directions it can go in, and the prices aren't good enough to play into that.
I like that over. It's at 5.5 -132 right now. I would lay that juice, particularly if that number holds and we end up seeing Phoenix Copley get this start, which is a possibility because he's being flown in to be the backup in tonight's game. Kemper's only day to day, so this situation sounds a little all over the place. But I think the Kings will be slightly less defensive this season, and Montreal has been the league's worst defensive team once again this season by a pretty large margin. They're giving up more chances than anyone, which Sam Montembeault has done an incredibly good job of erasing. I mean, even then, they gave up 6 goals to the Penguins last time out, so it's not like they're thriving in terms of the actual goals allowed. So I feel like in this spot, if you see Copley in goal, Montreal playing back to back, I think Montreal's power plays look pretty strong, and they've got some legitimate scoring punch. So I feel like they can do their part. But I still think the Kings' offensive upside should be better than it was last season. So I don't mind that low total at all. I'm definitely a little interested in that, and especially if you can maybe catch it if you know that Copley ends up getting the start.
The Devils and Sens up next, and I don't know. I feel like you could flip these total. I mean, there's a lot of offensive firepower and goaltending questions with this game, but the Devils are -126. The Sens +105. The total 6.5. And I say the same thing. Like, I just feel like a lot of bettors are going to look at this match and be like, I have a really hard way of seeing this thing not going to like a 6-4 or 5-3 game. And I do think that blends into the game script a bit. I would lean a little bit towards Ottawa as a home underdog here, with the Devils traveling back up from Carolina. Third game of 4 nights for them as well, but it's just not the price isn't there really for Ottawa or New Jersey at that point. So another one that I'll pass on.
Yeah, I feel like this one's a little hard to comment on. I kind of like the over, but like it's all good. It's whether Allmark plays or not. It's just going to be
Right.
gigantic. Like I feel like, yeah, you don't want to overrate one game, but the Forsberg just looks so, like it. When Allmark's not in goal, it seems like the Sens are going to have such a hard time putting up points this season. Like I'm just so happy that they found a way to win that game 8-7, because you can already see that it feels like these are going to be some dicey bets on them to make the playoffs if Allmark is out for any period of time, because the backup situation looks so bad. So it feels like his status is just really massive towards this game, the total and the price. Artem Zub's also out as well, who's been kind of sneaky good for the Senators. So at -26, at -126, the current price, I would kind of lean Devils and lean over. I think if you wanted to play them together and try to see if Allmark goes or not. That wouldn't be the worst way to target this matchup.
Next up, a game I do like. I like Detroit once again against the Rangers. I played them at close to 2-1 at the Garden on Monday night. Now they finished the home and home on Thursday night in Detroit. The Rangers are minus 140, Detroit plus 116. Total here 6.5. Rangers deserve credit once again for coming out of the gates hot, but it does feel like this is going to be the time when they'd rotate in Jonathan Quick, and his numbers were really good last year, but I have a really hard time seeing him replicate that. And I don't think Detroit has been like, they've kind of just been what they were last year a little bit. Like the 5-on-5 numbers aren't great, but I don't think that they're as bad as I want to say that they're all that concerning this this soon into the season, and I do trust that they'll kind of just do what they did last year, which is tighten things up defensively, turn games into a much lower event than they have been for them so far. So I think Detroit can grind this one out and turn it into a coin flip, especially with Quick and goal.
Yeah, I don't mind the Wings here either. If you catch Quick and Cole, we just saw them play the Rangers pretty respectably. I'm not that high on the Rangers this year, but wasn't one of my favorite bets on the slate. I don't know. I look at that Wings back end, and I'm just like they're gonna have three guys in the lineup. You still Sherrod on the top pair. Don't love that. Justin Hall second pair. Like I just feel like it's scary. I like what a lot of their forwards are doing. I think they can expose Quick here. They just played the Rangers respectively, but I'm not excited to bet on Detroit right now at all.
Edmonton and Nashville, a true coin flip right now, minus 110 on each side. Pick them in Nashville, total 6.5. The Oilers got their first win in very Oilers fashion from last October. They stormed back at late third period goal by Evan Bouchard, and then a goal team winner by Leon Draisaitl in a game that I think we did a good job projecting that one out, which is that the Flyers were just going to drag them into the deep end of the water, frustrate them. We saw that you were talking about Michkov. He scores twice, and they just fall in overtime. So it was a tough luck for Flyers backers. And but Edmonton now travels to Nashville, which are we just going to bet the Leon Draisaitl, 2+, 3+, because that seems to always come through against the Predators? And what are we thinking about the Predators here too? Like we said, like this team was going to be overrated just naturally, but based off of whoever wins the offseason always is, so coming out of the gates. But it doesn't look like abject, but offensively things are just kind of. But long-winded way of saying I'll probably bet the Draisaitl props, but that's about it.
Yeah, I kind of like the over here. Actually, I don't know. We'll see. It's another one I won't dwell on it too long because it wasn't within my favorite 5 bets on the slate. But I just think right now, like this Oilers team, it just feels crazy to fade any of their games going over. I think the Preds are due for some offensive regression. We both didn't like their pickups that much at all relative to the market. I don't think Brady Shea's that good. I don't think Steven Stamkos is that good. I think Tampa letting him walk made a pretty clear sentiment to what they thought about their franchise player. But yeah, this feels kind of crazy to take on the Oilers right now. So I could see this being a good spot for the Preds offense to break out of its slump and the Oilers big stars to come up with a big night. So yeah, Draisaitl versus Nashville will be popular. I wouldn't talk anyone off that. And especially in this game where I kind of think 3-3, 4-4, both teams having a solid offensive night is fairly probable.
Biggest underdog on the slate. Do you want to venture a guess who it is?
I know who it is, and I still think they deserve to be a bigger underdog.
Crazy. Yeah. No, I don't really disagree with you. The Chicago Blackhawks at home, minus 176 against the San Jose Sharks, who are plus 146. Total here's 5.5. I think one of the important stories for bettors that maybe doesn't resonate for more surface level stuff is that the Sharks do not, they just don't look any better than, maybe a little bit better than what they were last year, because last year was something else, but it's still ugly. And I do think you can make an argument here that the Blackhawks are the opposite. They've looked really good and the results have been a mixed bag, but they're in every game, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do just kind of run away with this one. So, yeah, laying -176 with the Hawks, maybe.
Yeah, I'm seeing it kind of the same way as you because, like you said, this is a completely different matchup for Chicago. They've had all tough games. They played the Jets tough in the Jets home opener. They took them to overtime there and lost. They beat the Oilers on the road. They lost to Utah in Utah's first game. And then at the game I was at last night, I bet on a tie. I thought the tie ended up being a pretty good call that didn't get home with them taking on the Flames. So it's a little intimidating because you talk about it. They've been in every game and they're probably going to play a lot of close scoring games given that they don't have that much offensive upside. I also think they've played 4 teams that have defended. I mean, you can't throw the Oilers in that group, I guess, but they've played some good teams that overall have defended really well so far this season. And I kind of think in their home opener here, I don't mind just taking them on as a big favorite. I don't know if they'll be that popular, but I actually think the Sharks could be bad enough that like a month from now, we're looking at this line thinking Chicago actually deserved to be a bigger favorite. And especially if kind of my belief about how the Hawks are playing is right. So it's a little scary to lay this kind of number when the Hawks haven't really shown much offensive upside, but I think when they get in this matchup versus the Sharks, it's a good spot for them to break out and hopefully win one a lot more comfortably than what we've seen out of them so far.
And before we get to our best bets, the Flyers and Kraken, Philadelphia +112, Seattle -134, total 6.5. Lean towards the Flyers here. They're going to be such a tough out, especially for teams like Seattle. It's one thing for a team like Edmonton to let them hang around and then punish them, but it's a completely different ball game against offensively challenged team like Seattle. But I also think this is a great overtime bet here between these two teams. Like it's really hard to imagine. I guess the goaltending can throw a wrench into the system, but it's hard to imagine like just one of these teams smothering the other and just running up the score. So I do think that if I was to pick any game on this slate to bet the overtime, it would be this one.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I was kicking myself for not betting Seattle last night, and it was funny that I said, that we thought they'd play a lot of games where they were competitive and didn't get rewarded, and that maybe their lack of offensive talent might hinder them. And then they score 7 goals versus the Predators. So that was a little frustrating. But I didn't have too much in particular on this game.
All right, let's go on to best bets then. Wouldn't you know? One of us likes the New York Islanders, who are -122 against the St. Louis Blues on the road. The total here 6.5, and it's you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm low on the Blues, and we made the Wild my best bet on Tuesday's show, and that came through because I don't like. There's nothing that makes me think this Blues team is going to be better defensively than they were last season. So I think that's a pretty scary proposition. And all in all, I think the Isles look pretty respectable. I feel confident they'll be a fair bit better than the Blues this year. I think that they have a fairly similar group of offensive guys moving play in the right direction. But I think their defensive core is considerably better than the Blues. I think you can say the same thing we said about the Wild, where there's a couple defenders on the Isles who would go over there and be the Blues' best defender right away. And then the Blues don't have their typical goaltending edge here in this matchup. So I'm happy to just go right back to fading the Blues. I didn't feel very good about their opening or their season long opening road trip, and they just looked bad again from the clips I saw versus the Wild. So I'm just another team that I think is just should be power rated way above the Blues. I think the Blues are like a clear non-playoff team still in my books.
Yeah, I like the Islanders here too. Actually, I think that there's still some room to grow as well for them. So even if it's the 122 is gone, I don't hate it even beyond that. I also think a couple of things to note for the Islanders if you wanted to play some player props. I think that Noah Dobson has had a very uneven start to this season, just overall. I do expect him to improve. And the one thing is that I think that their power play unit has been better than the results would show. They just haven't had that many opportunities. I think in each of the last 2 games, they've had one power play opportunity. I do expect Dobson to be pretty. I would say Dobson would be a good anytime goal scorer bet in this one. He's got 2 points on the season and just not hasn't had as many power play opportunities to like get a shot total up. So I think he could fly under the radar a little bit going into this one in St. Louis. And the last thing I'll say is I actually don't hate the shutout here for Sorokin. He looked, if Sorokin starts, like he looked dialed against the Avalanche, and both the goals that went in were not his fault. One was, I think, a goaltender interference that if the Islanders weren't staked to a lead, they probably would have challenged to keep. But the threat of the Avalanche power play kind of, especially because they just got off a power play, kind of scared them off of doing it, and they had the 2-goal lead in the third. He looked really, really good, and I think that this is a type of team that he could absolutely pitch a 0 on if he's back to his normal self. So I am probably going to bet that as a long shot play. My favorite bet, funnily enough, comes on the team you support, the Washington Capitals, plus 118 at home against the Dallas Stars. Stars minus 142 total here, 6.5. I just want to go against this Dallas team who, yeah, they're off and running. Great start to the year, 4-0 with a plus 6 goal difference at 5-on-5. It looks very Dallas, like on the surface for them, what everyone is expecting. This is a pretty trendy Stanley Cup team, but they're just not posting the 5-on-5 numbers that you'd think Dallas would if they were off to this kind of start. Washington has had a weird schedule, but I was pretty impressed with what they did on Tuesday night in their first win of the season. And I just think that this is the formula for the Capitals, is to come out and gum up the works a bit and get teams drag it into a rock fight, turn it into a 50-50. And I think they have a better chance of doing that against the Stars than these odds imply, especially with Dallas being a little overrated. And I wouldn't be shocked if this number moves towards Dallas too, so you could get a better number on Washington on Thursday.
Yeah, I think the Caps are going to be a really interesting team to watch as they get like a bigger sample here. I don't hate this play. I'm also with you, kind of trying to pick times to fade the Stars. And I think, we're going to learn a lot about the Caps in the upcoming weeks. Maybe that means you miss your chance to bet on them, but we'll see. I will say, too, in defense of the Stars, fairly modest 5-on-5 numbers. They've been ahead like 2 or 3 goals like the entirety of every game. So I think that more than most, the score effects have been pretty significant on those games. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with this one at all.
Okay, that does it. 11 games wrapped up in a tidy 24 minutes here on Line Change. If you need a refresher at the top, our favorite underdogs are the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Vegas Golden Knights. The best bets came in on the Islanders for Nick, the Capitals for me. Do you want to throw out an anytime goal scorer you like before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Who am I going to go with as my favorite? Let's go with Kirill Marchenko. I think I said I want to target someone from that line. That line's playing excellent. I think he's a great goal scorer. So let's go with him versus the Sabres back to back.
Okay, and I'll go with Noah Dobson for the Islanders as mine. That does it for us this week. We'll be back next week. Same cadence, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our producer, Dave, for all the hard work on the back end. And good luck with all your bets on Thursday and beyond.